weekend, so we get to stop partying and go back to work now.
And yeah, we're getting some pretty nasty storms too. Hopefully, just hold off for a couple more hours. And
No, you're not collecting rainwater, are you?
no,
Oh, that's good. I don't want you to kill your plants.
no, I just I'll drink it right out of the tap water with all the frack chemicals mixed in with it. I'd rather drink that anyways.
Let me remind everybody that we are totally listener supported, and we're at www.freedomslips.com. And if you're not in the chat room, you're missing half the show. Okay, Mark, I'll let you have it now.
Oh, okay. So, just hold on. It's going to be an interesting show, and we're going to have about 3 guests on for the next couple hours, and we're going to start off with Lois Scott. And Lois and I got together with a couple weeks ago, and you were singing.
Yeah, I was singing backup for Commander Cody.
Yeah, and yeah, that show in Ligonier was.
Did he take you for a ride in the Hot Rod Lincoln?
That's it. That's the one he wouldn't let me sing on, though. I wanted to sing on that one, but he said no.
but all the other songs, you were spending a lot of time with Randy, and it was like bringing back like the sounds of back in the late 70s with Nicolette Larson.
Oh, that's quite a compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job, and Bobby did a great job filling in for Mark, on guitar, and it was really, and we got it seems like when we get together at the Ligonier Country Inn, it's James Fournier's there with all his Yinzer.
Right, I met James. James. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, what's really funny is I've been a Commander Cody fan since 1978. I had a band. We were a road band called Back Up and Push, and my steel player said, "You got to listen to this guy, this George guy from Commander Cody." And I was like, "Oh my God!" And I fell in love with his music, and I did a party this summer. And Commander Cody was the main act at this party. And I know all his stuff because I've done it since the 70s. So I just said, can I hang out with you? And Steve, the drummer, said, well, maybe not. Do a couple. We'll see how you do. And then they asked me to stay the whole night. And so when I was invited up, I was quite surprised, but Steve gave me a shout on Facebook and said, hey, we're in Ligonier, which is not too far from me. And he said, how about coming up and having fun? And I said, oh, I'll be there in a heartbeat.
Okay.
So that's how that all came together.
Okay. And you did a terrific job. And
thanks.
And you also have a long country music legacy as well.
I do.
Can you tell us? I do.
My dad. Mm-hmm. My dad started on the WWVA Wheeling Jamboree in 1947, and he replaced Hawkshaw Hawkins. When Hawkshaw Hawkins went to Wheeling, they needed somebody that was tall, good-looking, and Daddy auditioned, and I think he was in his early 20s at that time, and he got the job. He was there every Saturday night from 1947 till the mid-70s. He's got a gold star in the sidewalk there in front of the Capitol Theater. He always tells a funny story. He's passed on now, but he told a story that all the gold stars, they would stand on his star to look at Johnny Cash's star. So there's like 50 gold stars in the sidewalk, like Johnny Cash and Barbara Mandrell and Charlie Pride. And my dad has one of those stars, and his name is Ramblin' Roy Scott. So I was born into the country music of Wheeling, and I used to be backstage as a little country music brat. Dottie West would babysit me. Buck Owens would come to the house for a picnic. So it was quite exciting for me. I loved growing up in that venue. It was amazing time.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, he was, and he was funny. He was funny, and he liked to drink and have a good time, and he would sit around for hours and just pick. It was great. It was great.
I did not. I was watching some YouTube videos over the weekend, and I did not realize Buck Owens had such an influence on Graham Parsons.
Yes, and that's another one of my heroes is Graham Parsons and Emmy Lou. Yeah, I do a lot of their stuff too.
Yeah, so you are getting ready to put on your own show this Sunday. Can you tell us about
this Sunday?
Yeah,
Mark. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. I do a monthly jamboree. I own a restaurant. It's a quaint little place in White Oak, PA. That's near Monroeville, McKeesport, PA. And it's called the Twin Oaks Restaurant. And we do a monthly jamboree, and I am trying to preserve traditional country music as I grew up with, because it's, of course, dying off, and the country music has changed so much. So I'm trying to carry on the tradition. So if you play my show, you can't do anything after the year 2000. So I cut it off there. I thought that's when pretty much it started to go in the tanker for me. So we do a monthly jamboree, which it's always different. This month it's bluegrass, gospel, and country, and that's this Sunday, March 20th. The doors open at 3:30. The show starts at 4:30. It's $10, and we have 4 acts plus it's my jamboree staff band, which, by the way, 5 of us are WWVA Jamboree original members. So it's kind of, I'm trying to carry on the tradition.
Okay, and what are the bands who are going to be there?
Well, there are no bands. They're all acts, because my band backs up. Yeah, my band backs up everybody. There's a boy from Washington County. His name is Andy Gregg. He's kind of bluegrass and country. He's really good. There's a young lady by the name of Casey McKnight, young girl, fabulous. We have John Marsilio, who I used to be in a rock band called the Knobs, and he was the leader of the Knobs, and I got him to please come down and do some Merle Haggard with me. So John's on the show. And then we have a vocal group, 3 young kids. They're called the Duquesne Trio, and they'll be doing some really cool gospel vocally. No band, just vocals. So it's going to be a really good show.
Okay, and if it's the old type country and that, I think it will be too. I personally have a problem with getting drunk on a plane.
You get what? You get drunk playing?
No, that country song. I got drunk on a plane.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I just can't. I like all music, and I listen to every kind of music. But
so do I.
The newer country is just really, the last few years has really stopped my like for listening to popular country music.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing this for my daddy, and I'm doing it for all the people that still love Haggard and Johnny Cash, and we don't get to hear it much anymore. So I'm trying to keep it alive, and evidently it's doing well, because the crowds are okay. I mean, they could be better, but they're okay. We're not even a year old yet, so I'm really trying. And next month, I've got Mr. Elroy Face, Pittsburgh Pirates great, going to sing with us next month in April. So if you remember Mr. Elroy Face from the Pittsburgh Pirates pitcher, him and my dad used to. Yeah, my dad and him used to sing together years and years ago. So we've got a lot of good surprises once a month, you know?
Wow. Okay, and that's your website is twinoakslounge.com?
Yeah, that's for the restaurant. But you can find me better on Facebook under LOIS Scott, SCOTT. And if you like the Twin Oaks Jamboree page, we'd be very appreciative.
Okay. Sounds good. Do you want to say anything else? It's this Sunday. It's really not all that far from Pittsburgh. It's what, kind of like south of Pittsburgh, west of
south of Pittsburgh.
Greensburg.
Right. It's near McKeesport, PA, and or Washington, PA. Or I'm sorry, not Washington, Monroeville, PA. And it's 1985 Lincoln Way, White Oak, Pennsylvania. Put it in your GPS and come sing with us. Okay,
and there's food is available?
Got great food. My husband's one of the chefs. He works very hard, and the kitchen will be open till midnight.
Okay. It sounds really like a nice family outing time.
It is. And there's comedy. We do comedy as well as country and bluegrass and gospel. There is also comedy. We have Diana Lynn from the original Jamboree. She's with me, and she's a great comedian, and she does a great job for us.
Okay.
Kind of reminiscent. I guess what we're trying to do is make you feel warm and fuzzy like the old hee-haw days. So we kind of steal and emulate a lot of stuff from the old hee-haw show.
Okay. So sounds good. And it's only $10?
Only $10 for all that entertainment. 5 acts plus a great band and comedy, and we throw out T-shirts all night long for free. So it's a lot of fun.
You have a pedal steel player?
Oh my gosh, WWVA Jamboree's one of the best. He was the original 1170 band, the band that backed up all the greats that came into Wheeling. We have him with us. His name is Charlie McVeigh. He is fabulous.
Well, that's hard to pass up listening to a pedal steel player.
Yes, it is. It's my favorite instrument.
Mm-hmm. All righty. So there. Do you want to cover anything else, or we can get to Jeff next? What?
Well, I hope that your audience gives us a try. Please come on down. I'd love to meet everybody. And Mark, are you going to try to make it to the show?
Yes, I'll be there.
All right. We're going to have a great time. Thomas, it was great to meet you.
Oh, yes, ma'am. This is interesting. I like talking music. It's
thank
pretty
you.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
I wish I was a musician. I can bang 2 sticks together. That's about it.
Well, I've been known to do that too. So.
Well,
hey, it was great talking.
Yeah, you did a great job with Commander Cody. I mean, it's like you don't get to work with celebrities of that status just because you ask them. You have to know what you're doing.
Well, yeah, I paid my dues. I've been singing a long time. I've opened up for, Merle Haggard 3 times. I was an opening act. I even worked for John Ford Coley and England Dan. I did Tammy Wynette 3 times, Miss Loretta Lynn 3 times. Brad Paisley and I worked together before he grew up. He was a young boy when I worked with him. So I've been doing opening act work and backup vocals for many Nashville acts and not Nashville acts too. I've worked with some country rock and rockabilly stars too through my career, and I'm still doing it. I'm 60 years young, and I'm still wanting it just as much as I did when I was 23.
All right. Well, I was going to say 29, but.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think the music keeps me young, and I'm so grateful for that.
Okay, well, you did a great job with Commander and sharing the stage with Randy for most of the evening a couple weeks ago at Ligonier, and yeah, sounds like you have a great thing going on a monthly basis. If you aren't able to make it this Sunday, just keep checking the TwinOaksLounge.com website so you can find out when the next ones are going to happen, and come on out and see Lois and all the other bands.
Oh, thank you so very much.
All right. Okay, so is that about it for your segment then?
I think so. I had a great time. Thank you for the invite.
Okay, well, Thank you for
Keep
bringing
us
it.
posted.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again. We have another event to promote as well. So if you want to, just hang on, listen, or go back to work, do.
I am rehearsing. That's what I was doing because it's Sunday and I have a lot to remember.
Okay. All right, all right. So well, we'll talk to you Sunday. Then we'll have to do another one of these interviews sometime soon. Then I'll be sure to get.
Anytime.
It was nice meeting you.
Thank you so very much. Nice to meet all of you. Have a great night. Have a great show.
All right, bye, Lois. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.
Okay, now let's see. We have Jeffrey Wilson joining us, and Jeffrey has been on a few times with Ross Hamilton discussing crop circles and the Serpernt Mound. And Jeffrey, you have an event coming up this Sunday as well. So welcome, and you want to talk? Tell us.
Thanks, Mark. The event that you're referencing actually starts on Friday. It's Friday, okay. Saturday, and Sunday, and it's called the Serpernt Mound Spring Seed and Water Peace Summit. And this is an event that is co-sponsored by the Alternative Universes House of Fake Ops and the Friends of Serpernt Mound, which I serve as the president of that organization. So I appreciate you inviting us on to have a little bit of time to talk about this event.
All right.
I think these structures are something that we need and understand what they were used for. And that this is part of the American heritage that we forget.
It's interesting you mentioned about American heritage. I just gave a talk on Sunday over by Serpernt Mound at our monthly meeting at the Friends of Serpernt Mound, and I actually talked about the women who saved Serpernt Mound. Most people don't know that it was largely through the efforts of a group of women from Massachusetts that preserved Serpernt Mound. Serpernt Mound was the very first archaeological site in the United States to be set aside and preserved. And they did so because they believed that during that time frame, as a result of a huge economic collapse in the country that was known as the Great Depression, before there was a Great Depression in the 1930s, this was in the 1870s. And the Great Depression of the 1870s, started by the Panic of 1873, caused a massive economic collapse around the world. It started in Europe and it spread here. It was caused by a housing bubble, very similar to the same thing that we just went through, here in the United States in the last, 5 or 8 years. And the economic conditions of the time were probably far worse than what we're experiencing today. You had massive economic disruption coming out of the Civil War. You had huge displacements of peoples that caused a tremendous influx of immigration to the United States during that period of time. You had the rise of the Industrial Revolution. You had the transition from people who were slaves now suddenly not slaves. You had the rise of the women's suffrage movement. You had the temperance movement that was taking place. You had all these huge upheavals in society. And this group of women in Boston and in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they got together and they decided that the old Puritan ways were not really working anymore. The thing that kind of stitched the country together, prior to the American Revolution, that sort of mentality was not working in the new unfettered capitalistic, economy, with the rise of the robber barons and so on and so forth. And so they looked around for some kind of solution to, what could people believe, and stitch a society together for a new America. And they turned to the ancient peoples of this country. They very much believed that if people understood the very ancient history of this continent, that we would have a much better sense of what it really truly meant to be an American. That the sort of ancient history that we share would be able to unite people from all walks of life, and the lessons learned from the ancient people could translate into a new identity for what it means to be an American. And so these women set out to raise enough money to preserve Serpernt Mound to be a symbol of that. And it was largely an effort led by a woman by the name of Alice Fletcher, who was a pretty noted anthropologist later in her life. She preserved most of the sort of tribal lore and lifeways of the Sioux peoples in the Dakotas after she led the effort to preserve Serpernt Mound. So she was very critical in preservation of ancient earthworks, as well as preservation of the current native population, and did her best throughout most of her life to try and make native peoples American citizens, and tried to do whatever she could to help the plight that was taking place at that time. I mean, there was huge displacement of native peoples at the time too. So, but the Seed Festival at Serpernt Mound has to do with a couple of other things, not necessarily related so much to that, but it kind of got started from a few ideas that crossed over one another. And it started in 2003. In August of 2003, there was a crop circle that appeared in a field across the street from Serpernt Mound. And I went and investigated that on behalf of an organization that became known as the Independent Crop Circle Researchers Association. I served as the director of that organization, and I had been investigating crop circles for a long time throughout the United States. And one of the findings of that we had come up with as a result of investigating so many crop circles was that there was a real high correlation between the appearance of where crop circles were forming and nearby ancient archaeological sites. So I think it was about 65% of the cases, where a crop circle came down, it was in very close proximity to an ancient earthwork or a mound site. And so this one happened right near Serpernt Mound. The following year, there was kind of a political initiative in the state of Ohio by the Republican legislature and the Republican governor at the time to slash funding for the Ohio Historical Society. And they dramatically reduced the funding to the OHS at the time. And it caused the OHS to lay off people across the state that were maintaining a lot of these historical sites, including Serpernt Mound. And it caused the conditions and the standards of the park to decline, pretty dramatically. And so there was a local initiative that was set up by the Adams County Travel and Visitors Bureau that became known as the Friends of Serpernt Mound to help volunteer to maintain park conditions and keep the park open. And the Friends of Serpent Mound began to kind of take over the eventing that was taking place at the park. And one of the ideas that the group came up with was to hold events that were centered around certain times of the calendar that corresponded to the archaeoastronomy alignments that are incorporated into the design of Serpent Mound. So, for instance, there's a very popular event that takes place around the summer solstice. On the day of the summer solstice, the sun will set along a key alignment through the head and the oval of Serpent Mound, and people have been coming out there for a long time to watch that take place. And so one event that we decided to put together was during the springtime. There is another alignment that takes place through the center bend of the serpent, through the center coil. You can watch the sun rise through that center coil, or you can stick around and watch the sun set on the opposite coil on the same day of the equinox. So we decided to set up an event around that, and we thought, well, because it's spring, then we'll kind of create a seed festival around that. In 2005, there was a notable book that was published. It was called Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, and it was authored by the late John Burke. And John Burke, actually, I knew John Burke a bit. He kind of got his start actually investigating crop circles as a member of the BLT Incorporated. And through his work at the BLT, he understood that one of the interesting things that happens in crop circle formations is that the plants and the seeds of the plants that are flattened inside crop circles, they generally show an increased ability to grow faster and healthier than normal seeds do. And that has to do with, it's hypothesized that has to do with increased exposure to electromagnetic radiation as a result of whatever energy creates crop circles in the first place. But in Burke's book, Seed of Knowledge, Stone of Plenty, he went around to ancient archaeological sites around the world, and including Serpent Mound, and he exposed seeds to those ancient sites and came up with a similar effect as what he was seeing in crop circles, that seeds that are taken to these ancient sites and exposed there for a short period of time will have the same sort of increased vigor and accelerated growth rate that he was seeing coming out of the crop circle. And so it's a really interesting sort of discovery. He did a whole series of scientific tests and verified that effect was taking place. And he ended up, along with a biophysicist by the name of W.C. Levengood, they actually patented a device that exposes seeds to electromagnetic fields to reproduce that effect. But we thought it would be fun to have our seed festival at Serpent Mound during the springtime, when people start planting seeds for the year, and they could bring their seeds to Serpent Mound, sort of get them exposed, and they would be, they would grow a little bit healthier, so on and so forth. So that's how the seed festival began. And after a couple of years, it sort of expanded. There were initiatives that were taking place worldwide that people wanted to do water blessings to sort of clarify the water that would, because there's so much water pollution, around, and particularly the Ohio River. I think the Ohio River has been named most polluted river in the United States for like the last 17 years running or something like that, something crazy like that. So we thought it would be nice to, incorporate something additional like that. And the event has continued to grow year after year after year. And so this year, the event will actually be held not at Serpent Mound directly for the most part, it's going to be held at Woodland Altars, which is about 3 or 4 miles away from Serpernt Mound, but it's a facility that can handle the array of speakers and the musicians that are coming to play and the vendors that will be there. And it's really an event to help sort of promote peace amongst all people. So one of the themes of the event is all nations, all races, all my relations. And so all people are invited. The event is free to the public. Anyone can come out and attend, and you're more than welcome to take part. If you're interested in the array of speakers, I want to say that there's more than a dozen over the 3 days, and there's more than a dozen different musicians, I think, that are going to be playing. The event starts on Friday at 9 o'clock in the morning and runs through Sunday evening. So it's an all weekend long, all day long event. There'll be food, and it'll be just a big festive time for everybody to come out and be a part of the community.
Yeah, Jeffrey, is Woodland Altars on Route 41?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's for those that want to just put it into their GPS. It's 33200 State Route 41. That's in Peebles, Peebles, Ohio 45660, and it's like I said, it's about 4 miles from Serpernt Mound.
Okay, and you can
now there will be a couple of occasions during the festival where there will be a portion that actually takes place at Serpernt Mound. So there will be the Friends of Serpernt Mound sponsors a drumming that takes place on each of the solstices and the equinoxes. So that drumming will take place in the evening during the event.
And when people go to the Serpernt Mound to watch the spring equinox, sunrise and sunset, where does the sun appear on the horizon at the mound? Is it like off to the side or near the tail?
Yeah, so if you're brave enough to try and get up that early in the morning, actually, I don't think the park will be open. The park doesn't open until 10 o'clock in the morning, so coming out for the sunrise is probably a no-go. However, for the evening sunset, the park closes at dark, so you should be able to see the sunset. And really, when you get to the park, you just have to walk a little bit past the observation tower to the central coil that points towards the west. And you just stand there behind that open coil, and you can watch the sun come right down, right through the middle of it.
Oh, okay. So it's towards the tail. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm. And I think by the end of the week, last spring, I actually did a time-lapse movie of the sunrise for the spring equinox. And I think I'm going to put it up on YouTube so you guys can watch for that. We'll post a link to that on the Friends of Serpernt Mound Facebook page, and you'll be able to see that.
Okay, so people can friend you on Friends of Serpernt Mound on Facebook?
Yeah, you can if you just go to Facebook and type in Friends of Serpernt Mound, the organization page will come up.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's all weekend.
I think there's 3,000 plus people that are members of the Friends of Serpernt Mound Facebook page. So there's plenty of people out there around the world that have taken an interest. So
okay, is camping allowed on the Woodland Altars site?
They do have campsites available, and you can contact the alternative universe people to get an idea of what that cost is. I don't know what that cost is, but they do have a limited number of campsites available. They also have sleeping arrangements available in a dorm setting inside the main facility. And I think there may be some chalets left if you want like private rooms. There are kind of an array of choices of sleeping accommodations there.
Okay. Sounds very interesting. And you're probably going to have one for the summer solstice as well?
Yes, the summer solstice will be another 3-day event, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, preceding the summer solstice, which actually takes place on a Monday night. But what's nice about the summer solstice and the winter solstice too is that the sun kind of comes to a standstill for about 2 or 3 days, and so having it, the weekend prior to the actual day of the solstice, you'll still be able to see the same sort of sunset alignment view. There won't be any difference between seeing it on the weekend and seeing it on Monday. So, yeah, there will be a huge, festival at Serpernt Mound and on the adjacent property, which is become kind of the place to go for the vendors and the speakers and so on and so forth. But parking is still at Serpernt Mound. You just have to walk across to get to the adjacent property field where the festival is held for the summer solstice.
Okay. Yeah, I think Delcy wanted me to review the Junction group at this summer one, so I probably don't have much of a choice. So I'll be at that one.
Oh, great! That was a wonderful initiative to save the Junction group, and the Friends of Serpernt Mound, kind of kicked off that initiative, but we were, thankful that others joined in, and the money was raised to preserve that site.
Yeah, we all worked together on that one. And Delcy summoned me to recap working together to preserve history. So it's supposed to do that. So I will see you then.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah. So, and is there any? Do you want to say anything else? You want to hang out with Katrina for a while? It's up to you.
I actually, I've got to run, but I do appreciate the invitation and look forward to people coming out. My lecture will probably dive into the details around the crop circle and the Seed of Knowledge Stone of Plenty book and Serpernt Mound, of course, and how all those things tie in together. There's a lot more detail that goes into those things. So if people are interested in any of those topics, my lecture, I think, is on Friday at 4:00 in the afternoon. And
well, I hope it's standing room only.
In the past, it has been. We'll see. This year, there should be. It should be good. There's going to be a full crowd of presenters and musicians, so it'll be fun.
It sounds like it. So go out and see Jeffrey, Tom, and Terry. Oh, they're all going to be there. Starting.
I do want to make one last thank you and mention to the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. They have donated a selection of seeds for the event, and they did that last year as well. And so we do pass out seeds for people to take if they don't want to bring their own for the seed blessing.
All right. That was a very nice gesture.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Jeffrey, do you want to take off now?
Yep. I appreciate the time. We'll see you soon, Mark.
Enjoyed it, and you have a good show or a good festival. I think you will.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Jeffrey. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye.
Take care. Okay.
Well, that was rather interesting. I wish I could go to them festivals like that up there, but they don't have that kind of stuff here.
Yeah. Move on up here from March.
We got rattlesnake roundups once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's that one. Okay, so now we're going to get to our third guest. We have KATRINA Hutchins joining us. Hi, KATRINA.
Hello. Hi.
She's going, finally.
No, I'm loving listening. This is great. And I do know Jeffrey. He's good people, and the work that they do is amazing out there. So I won't be at the seed blessing, but I will be there for the summer solstice. So we'll all have to get together for big group hugs and some picture taking and some handshaking, and it'll be a good time.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. It's, Delcy put me up to this. So, nice to come down and be there for the weekend. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. So, and got the country music stuff this Sunday. So, winter is getting over. That's fine with me. Start getting outside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Have you been to one of the summer solstices?
No,
events that they have there at Serpernt Mound?
No, I've been to the Serpernt Mound a few times, but not to the solstices.
It's amazing. It really is. I mean, it is. It's just incredible. You are going to love it.
And have you seen that new report that seems to indicate that the Serpernt Mound was actually of Adena origins?
I've seen a lot of different information on Serpernt Mound, and there's a lot of conflict, even within people who believe that it has, like maybe a mystical connotation versus something very ancient versus something a little more modern. They've done the carbon 14 testing on carbon, actually, like burnt pieces of wood that were found inside of the mound. And you have one group of people saying, well, that could have been put there later, so it doesn't necessarily indicate the age. We believe it's actually created thousands of years older than that. So my knowledge with Serpernt Mound is primarily experiential, and I can't speak to the actual history or even to the myriad theories regarding Serpernt Mound, not to any great length.
Okay, but your area of expertise has been going to Egypt and studying the pyramids.
So I'm not going to use the word expertise because somebody eventually is going to ask me a question, and I'm going to say I don't know. But that is my primary focus of interest on ancient history. And anytime I have an opportunity to speak about high technology in ancient Egypt, I always have to give credit to the Alian family. I came to know about their way of thinking through the documentary by Carmen Bolter called The Pyramid Code. And from that, I had reached out and made, like everybody does, I made friends on Facebook with members of the family. I got to know them that way. I read more, learned more. I always knew I had to go to Egypt. I tell people I remember the first time I ever said I am going to Egypt was when I was standing in the lunch line in 4th grade, and I'm talking to the kid next to me, and they're just like, uh-huh. And it took me like another 30 years after that to actually make the trip. But the Aoyan family greatly facilitated that, and they also gave me they lit the passion. Like, I was always interested, but I was not necessarily consumed with alternative theories of ancient Egypt, and they opened my eyes. It's just incredible. So I hopped on a plane. Oh, actually, let me back up. I spent a year taking Arabic at the college level so that I would have some clue as to how to communicate with people. Hopped a plane, and they had a driver meet me at the airport. I'd never met these people. I'd never flown to Egypt or been in the Middle East before. Was treated with the greatest of hospitality, above and beyond, and was able to be on the ground and investigate and get into places that technically you're not allowed. Let's say they're not open to the public. But I was able to have access to those places either as myself with one or two other people or with a very small party of maybe like 6. And it's just amazing. I tell people I was the most prepared person ever to go to Egypt and do research. I had watched every documentary. I had read every book. I had seen every film. I had gone to every museum and seen every exhibit. And when I got there, the biggest thing I learned was how little I knew based on just other people's information. I was lost. Even a year of Arabic, I would try and talk to, like, we're talking little kids, like 4 and 5 years old, and they would literally point and laugh at me. So, not that the education was wasted, it just wasn't necessarily as applicable as I was led to think that it would be. But, so I have some great stuff from Egypt, and I'm willing to gabble on about that for quite a while if you like.
A lot of cultures, once you get to know the culture, it's completely different than what people and other things that you've seen about it is wrong completely.
Mm-hmm. I believe very strongly that every person who has the ability needs to travel to a culture that is as far removed from what they are familiar with as they can possibly stand.
Sure opened their eyes up, wouldn't it?
It does. I mean, you get to the point where you visit somewhere and you realize that flushing toilets and toilet paper is a luxury, and that there is an entire different set of perceptions about ourselves, about us, coming from the other side, so to speak. But it changes your priorities. It changes your perception of how we live. The women in the household in Egypt, we're talking mom, daughters, daughter-in-laws, the kids, everybody would get together and clean the rice. And rice is the staple food. You have it every meal along with bread. And they would literally sit there and flip one piece of rice at a time and make sure it was a good piece of rice. And it took hours. And they did this every day. And this was part of their regular routine for preparing meals. And then you look at America and people get honked off because Uncle Ben's takes too much effort. You open the box, you pour in a pot. My entire perspective of what it takes to prepare a meal for my family was stood on its head. So, and that's the smallest of things. That's the least of the things that created a bit of cognitive dissonance within myself as far as what I was prepared for and what I experienced.
Well, once you got there, what was the biggest surprise that you got?
Oh, I don't think I know, because it was all so overwhelming and so magical at the same time. If you think about ancient stories from Ireland where people get kidnapped by the fairy folk and taken under the hill, I was scheduled to be there for 6 weeks living with a native family, and every single day had something that rocked my world. We were coming from the airport, and now my plane got in at 3 a.m. So we're driving through Cairo from the airport to go to the village. So we go through Cairo, we go through Giza, or we go over the Nile River, we go through Giza, we get to the village. So we're driving through Cairo, and this place is like New York at noon. It's 3:30 in the morning. And I'm asking one of the gentlemen that came to pick me up, I'm like, is there a festival? Is this a holiday? Like, where are all these, what are they doing? And he just laughed, and he said, when you have a city with 26 million people in it. You have to live in shifts. You have first shift, second shift, third shift. And you may have a store that is owned by a family, and the one brother works for 8 hours during the day, and the next brother works for 8 hours in the evening, and the third brother works for 8 hours overnight. And that's their life, because you have to live in shifts. There's no room for everybody to be awake at the same time. And I'm like, okay, I'm here for 10 minutes, and I'm already going, oh, I didn't know. I just didn't know. So, yeah, it's just every single day there was something that changed my reality.
Well, most people don't realize that Cairo is such a big city either.
No, I think, well, in the Middle East, it is the largest, most densely populated, most highly populated city in the Middle East. And I think, and I hope that I don't get penalized if I'm wrong, I think after like Rio de Janeiro, it's the second largest city in the world. It's either second or third. It's right up there at the top. And that's a lot of humanity.
I didn't realize it was that large. So, so you're in Cairo. You go out to the pyramids. What are you learning by inspecting the pyramids? The family that I stayed with is in a little village called Nezlet al-Samem, and it is literally at the base of the pyramid. Every morning when I got up and I walked out of my bedroom, there's the 3 pyramids right there. At the other family house where I visited daily, you could only see 2 of the pyramids, but if you were a professional baseball player, you could have hit the Sphinx from their balcony. So this is like, these people live right there. To get to the pyramids from their house, you just have to walk, and you go through a pedestrian gate versus the tourist gate, and you just walk, and there they are. There's the pyramids. My aim in seeing the pyramids personally and going inside of them actually had multiple facets. One is just the history and the mystery of the thing. The second is they're not tombs. They were never made to be tombs. They were never utilized as tombs. They are massively, hugely big things that's not what they were for. And then third, just to share my personal story, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and at the time of my diagnosis, I was completely bedbound, bedridden, massive lesions on the brain, couldn't talk. My husband had to take care of every aspect of my physical being for months. And when I recovered from that attack, I knew I had to go to Egypt. I knew, and I know I sound like a crazy person, and that's okay because there's more of us out there. I knew I had to go into the Great Pyramid and into the King's Chamber and to lay inside the granite box and to meditate with sound, like oming or tuning or whatever you want to call it. I got to do that. It was amazing. I also was able to do some indigenous healing work with the Awiyan family, which they're famous for in their own right there. And, I'm not saying that this is going to work for everybody, and I know that there's the whole placebo effect, but we did a lot of acoustic work in every location that we went to, and my MS is gone. I'm not cured, but my lesions are gone, my symptoms are gone, my ability to walk is returned. I'm fully functional. I'm great. Life is good. And I know that there were other interventions that were a part of that, but I honestly believe that being in the pyramid, being healed, touched by people who have the intent to heal you, and the sound energy and the frequencies that I experienced while I was there contributed, if not more, at least 75% to my recovery. Wow. So that's all
yes.
the acoustic, acoustic healing that does appear in the ancient literature.
It does, and it's real. And even now, well, I shouldn't say even now, even in this country, like Jeffrey was talking about doing drum circles and things like that, you can experience sound healing here in the U.S., whether it's drumming. There's a lot of work that's being done with like the Tibetan singing bowls to align chakras and re-attenuate your body. I don't know if he's been on your show, dear friend. I know of Jeffrey's and mine as well. Roger Sugden does healing work with a didgeridoo, and you can feel it. I mean, like,
that
obviously
sounds interesting to me.
Oh, it's great. It's good stuff.
I like the sound of it.
Oh, yeah. And if you have someone who can change their pitch and their tone, you know, if I blow on a didgeridoo, it sounds like something between a moose and a duck call. I'm not gifted in that way. But when you have somebody who knows their stuff, man, it's powerful. And sound it's a wave. You can feel it as well as hear it. There have been some reports from other countries, whether that would be Tibetan meditation or even in Egypt. If you raise the frequency of sound high enough, it becomes light. So it's all just a matter of the size and shape of the wave. And again, like we use ultrasound to break up kidney stones. We use healing even in modern Western medicine. But it's very specific and very targeted, and it's sometimes even a little bit destructive. But when you go into an indigenous culture, and I believe this is true of places not just Egypt, and you experience their sound meditation, their sound healing, their acoustic chambers, the sound of the universe, whether that's for a Christian, amen, or for a Hindu, om, you harness that sound and you can fix things. Things get well, things get better when your frequency is where it needs to be. Even, I know there's a lot of work being done at the Bosnian Pyramid where they...
That's our break, folks. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, folks. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the show. I do want to point out that we are totally listener supported, and if you come to the homepage, we got all kinds of little offers there that you can get for donations. And one of the best ones right now, it's here it's springtime. I don't know about where you're at, but we got 35,400 seeds, 56 varieties, and 900 survival documents for $100 donation. And really, it isn't like the station makes a bunch of money off that. They make about 20% after it's all done and said, if that, because of shipping and stuff. So now's the time to get this. Planting season's right around the corner, and these are all heirloom seeds. You can't get no better. From my understanding, 90% of them germinate from everything I've heard from people's feedback. So. Then we got the archives, got 90-some hosts. You can't listen to all the shows. You'd have to be a time traveler. Well, Mark, I've enjoyed the first half of the show so far.
Oh, yeah, it was covering a little bit of everything. I'm glad we had Lois and Jeffrey on, and we're being rejoined by KATRINA Hutchins, and we're just... hearing a little bit about her experiences in Egypt.
We should have recorded the break. I mean, we had a heck of a conversation for the break.
Wait, you mean we have to say all that again?
And one of the things you brought up during the break, which does need to be mentioned, is it seems like the relatively new discovery of the Great Pyramid actually has 8 sides.
Mm-hmm.
And that seems to be a new discovery based on like satellite photos or drones. It's there.
They actually had. I may be a little bit off on the details, but the bulk of the story is going to be accurate. World War II-ish, a gentleman was flying over the pyramids, and it just happened to be like the spring equinox, and he was flying over like at just exactly the right time, either at sunset or sunrise, and he was taking pictures from the plane, and the concave sides of the pyramids cast a shadow on their counterpart. So he saw then that it had 8 sides, but it's not really visible to the naked eye. It really was a matter of the shadow making it obvious. So since then, since we've gotten all kinds of like laser levels and things that you can do things within micrometers without having to actually get up there and get your hands dirty, they've confirmed it, it's valid. One of the theories is that it was so that the casing stones pushed against each other from the outside in and locked each other into place, which is a great theory. And the 8 sides on the outside are not replicated internally in any of the chambers that people have as of yet discovered and explored. So no idea if that has some purpose for the function of the pyramid, or if it was merely a matter of keeping the casing kind of locked in on itself, sort of like using a keystone at the top of an archway.
Do you think that the Egyptians could have been coming to America and bringing their engineering, the designs of the pyramids? The conical mounds seem like they're just smaller, grassy versions of pyramids.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if you look at Cahokia outside of St. Louis, I mean, that's the largest pyramid in North America, and a lot of times people forget that North America includes Mexico, and they're very famous for their pyramids there. Mm-hmm. Cahokia is a dirt and gravel pyramid versus being stone. My personal feeling is not so much that the Egyptians exported their knowledge as the knowledge was universally available at roughly the same time for a multitude of cultures. I don't have a theory as to how that's possible necessarily, but I do believe that when you talk about like sociological advancements or actually I think not archaeological but anthropological developments, there's theories that say that different cultures will develop the same techniques for achieving the same things over time, separately of themselves. Like they all figure it out on their own. What's interesting is, and we've all seen the multiple pictures online, this is a pyramid in Indonesia, this is in Africa, this is Egypt, which is technically part of Africa, although it kind of stands out. These are pyramids in South America. And they all have similarities. I think the similarities are so exacting in their detail that those little things did not develop independently. There had to have been a global access to this type of information. There's a whole lot of theories out there. The Earth was much, much smaller. Everybody was in one place, and the Earth got bigger. They got separated, but the knowledge got kept. We have the cataclysm that happened 12,000 years ago that disrupted whatever this multiple shared knowledge is. But in the main, the pyramids all seem to kind of have the same properties. And it is established that there was actually transatlantic communication between Egypt and South America. There's a great documentary out there called The Mystery of the Cocaine Mummies. They have found South American cocaine residue in mummies that are in the museums in Egypt, as well as other places around the world. And there's only one place. I mean, it's broken down into its base components and ingredients, and from that they can tell where it was grown and how it was processed. And the mummies have cocaine residue that came specifically from South America. Also, a great deal of urns and amphora from the ancient world, whether that's Roman or Greek, has been found off the coasts in Brazil that indicate that there were shipping lanes that were not unknown. I mean, people have been traversing the planet, whether we are willing or able to admit that or not, for a really long time.
I fully agree with that myself. Was something about these monolithic structures that's fascinated me is the earlier building are better done constructed wise than the later stuff.
Absolutely. And, people argue, I shouldn't use the word argue, that's kind of harsh, but people will speak to me and say, cultures and science and technology only go up. You only get better, you only improve. So these old walls that are made out of megalithic pieces of stone, those have to be newer because they had to build up the technology. In Egypt, they'll tell you the mud brick came first, then the small stone mastabas, and then the step pyramid, then the bent pyramid, then regular pyramids. But we see throughout history that the bigger stones are on the bottom. And my modern equivalent is if you go into a building that was built even as recently as, say, the 1890s through the 1920s, go into some of these Carnegie theaters or some of the really great historic homes throughout the United States where everything is hand-carved wood and crystal chandeliers and molded plaster throughout, and then look at the houses we're building today. We're not doing it better.
Yeah,
we've gotten shoddy.
Well, with the Shakespeare shows we did a couple weeks ago, you can look at whoever the author of those plays and the sonnets was, and look at the inarticulate writings going on in schools today. So things don't get. Look at Presidents Washington and Lincoln and what we're dealing with in the last several presidents. Things aren't getting better.
One of the things, I wish I could say that I studied it under Patricia Aoyan, but really I just listened to her talk about it with great fascination several times. So I'm not really qualified to explain this other than my basic understanding, because it's deep stuff that, everything's a cycle, everything's a wheel. We see that with the changing of the seasons. We see that from dawn until dusk, and then from dusk until dawn. The life cycle of the human, if you're allowed to live into your old age, it's kind of that old joke, you start as a baby, you end as a baby. Everything is cyclical. We go around the sun, the moon goes around us, etc. Time is the same way. Time is not a straight line. It's a circle. And the way it was explained to me was that the circle has all these, spokes on a wheel, and between the two spokes you have a span of time, and that span of time can be anywhere on the wheel, depending on your perception of where you are. So right now, we look around us and we think we are the pinnacle of all humanity. We've got it all. We can cure diseases, we can feed people, we can grow mutant plants, whatever. We are at the top rung. But in 1910, they thought the same thing. And in 1810, they thought the same thing. Like every time you go anywhere through history, everybody always thinks they're the best. Like it's just never going to change. It's never going to get any better. We've, think of the 50s. They did not see the 60s coming. So we might actually be somewhere near the bottom of the circle. I mean, this could be hell on earth as far as the other cultures that have been in the other spokes of the wheel have come about and lived their lives. And somewhere on that wheel is this advanced technology and this really open, understanding human that can work with others and create things of monumental size, shape, and proportion. And we're not in that. We're not in that place on the wheel right now. But eventually, humanity will get back there. But first, we have to go through this version of time with all of the good parts and all of the bad parts until we move on to the next one. And I think even on a zodiac level, on a more universal scale, we talk about like the age of Aquarius and coming out of the age of, I think we left the Ram. If we left Aries and now we're in Aquarius, and I'm not
somebody's going to correct me, or someone should, because I know I don't have those right. But it's the same thing. Every age has its own title, and each of those titles carries with it certain aspects. Just like if you're a Virgo or if you're a Libra, you may only be born 2 days apart, but there's this piece of paper and this astrological wisdom that says that you're two different people, and your personalities and your goals are going to be different.
We've had Chris Dunn on, was like really late September or early October, and he was talking about like some of the salt on the ceilings of the passageways inside the pyramid. Now, did you find that to be accurate, or is it some other type of mineral?
If my remembering of my reading serves me right, Chris and the book is The Giza Power Plant, says that there were a mixture of chemicals that were introduced into the pyramid in order to electrify or get the electricity out of like a creation of energy, and then that there were metal rods or some type of statuary down the main corridor, and that's what conducted the electricity. And that the residue that he has heard of and observed in the pyramid, he believes is a result of the evaporation of the chemicals that were introduced for the creation of power. I spoke to a couple of people that were in the pyramid, and what they will tell you is that the pyramid really, and this was a kind of a surprise to me, because it's really, I was in Egypt in June. It's stinking hot. Like, it's just really hot there. And I thought, like here, when you go into a cave, it's always like 72, 73 degrees year round. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to be inside the pyramid and it's going to be nice and cool. Oh no, the pyramid is a giant convection oven and you will cook inside of the pyramid. It is really hot and stuffy in there. And when I asked the keeper who was in the pyramid the first time that I went about the salt, he said it's because it's so hot, everybody sweats. And when you go in the pyramid, your sweat can't go anyplace. So it collects on the ceiling, and then when the water evaporates, all that's left is the salt. So the salty ceilings in the pyramid are due to sweaty tourists. I don't scientifically know that is accurate. My theory on the pyramids, there's a couple pieces of background information. First, and this is not something that's stressed very often, every single pyramid complex throughout the entire line of the Nile, all the way through Egypt, when you are at one pyramid complex, you can see the next one. There is 100% line of sight. And if you go to like Saqqara, you can see Giza, the pyramids, and you can also see, I believe it's either Abu Sir or Abu Jarab. I don't remember off the top of my head. And when you go to Abu Jarab, you can see Abu Sir and Saqqara. Like, everything is visible. So I think line of sight is very important, because when we think back to modern electrical miracles, we think of Nikola Tesla and his entire free energy from the air sort of theory also needed things to be within line of sight. So you have two correlations there. The second thing is there's this electrical effect called, it's the piezoelectric effect. Some people have heard of it, some people haven't. And basically what that says is that when you put a stone or quartz that has a certain percentage of quartz or silica quartz, when you put pressure on it, it creates energy all by itself. Like, it just does. And quartz also is a perfect conductor of energy. You have nearly no energy loss when you conduct through quartz crystal. So limestone, which is the Giza Plateau is a limestone dome, I guess. Limestone also conducts energy. all underneath the pyramids, it's tunnel after tunnel after tunnel. Like there are stories of people going into the tunnels and they've never seen them again. They are incredible. I've been in them. I've taken pictures of them. They're real. They really are there. It does not matter. I'm telling you that they exist. Those tunnels before the building of the Aswan Dam, whenever the Nile had its annual inundation, and those tunnels would fill with water. So you have water running through limestone under the ground, which creates an electrical charge. You have silica sand, which is basically quartz crystal, blowing across the limestone with the air, the wind in the desert. That is creating an electrical effect. Then you have the weight of the pyramids pushing down on all of this limestone and quartz, which creates the piezoelectric effect. My theory is you combine those three things, you look at the pyramids, and they are there to harness and then to line of sight transmit a form of non-Hertz-based energy that would be very recognizable to Nikola Tesla.
I find that extremely interesting. Do you think the obelisks had anything to fit into this?
Absolutely. I think the obelisks are a type of antenna, possibly even an amplifier. Some of the obelisks that are like the unfinished obelisk that is still in the ground, or ones that are laying down, if you rap on them with your knuckles, they ring. Like they are resonant. And if this is a type of energy that's based on resonance and conducting energy in the same way that we would conduct sound, like from radio towers, it just makes sense that they would be a way station. They're kind of like the electrical substation in your neighborhood versus the main power plant downtown.
What do you think this energy was used for?
Well, I think it was used for everything that we would use energy for. It's just that their need for energy was different. You have like the mythology behind the Dandara light bulb. So you go into these tombs that are very deep underground, and there's no soot. And if you talk to mainstream archaeology, oh my gosh, we had all these people with copper mirrors lined up down the hallway, and they were reflecting light back and forth to each other. And that's how they made all of this amazing, just amazing artwork down in these tombs. And the first stuff was carved in bas relief. Then the second level is carved into the stone. And then eventually they just started painting stuff. Again, it's a de-evolution of the technology. But why? Why they don't need mirrors if they have energy? You have the Baghdad battery, which basically creates energy using acid, like lemon juice, in the same way that the pyramids would be able to create and harness energy. And that could have been used to light very small filaments. Just because Thomas Edison came up with one form of a light bulb doesn't mean that's the only form of light bulb that's able to function.
True, and nothing like copper wires would have survived thousands of years either, you know?
Exactly. And people say, well, if they were using all this high technology, where are the tools? Some of the tools do still exist. There are some I can't really call them out-of-place artifacts, but they are things that are really interesting to look at, and we have no idea what they were used for. Therefore, it's decorative, or it was an offering, or whatever. We have things like the schist disc in the museum in Cairo. There's people who are actively working on trying to figure out what that was for now.
Yeah, they're doing quite a bit of testing on it right now.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun to watch. It's fun to have people out there getting their hands dirty and putting their mind to use and saying, you know, I may not have the answer, but I know that that's not the answer. So let's figure something else out. When you go to Saqqara, you can go to the Serpernt, which is underground. It's a long central hallway with these giant rooms off to the side, and in each of the rooms is not in every single one, but there's the giant granite boxes. Mainstream archaeology tells us that they were burial sarcophagi for the Apis bull. And The only thing that's correct in that whole sentence is the word bull. You cannot have the. I mean, it's incredible. I can't even decide.
They're
like,
awesome.
I can't even paint the word picture. Yeah,
I've
it's
never
amazing,
gotten to go there and see these things, but I have seen quite a few photographs of them and that. And
yes,
because Egypt has interested me since I was a little kid too. I've never gotten to go there.
Well, let me know when you're going, because we'll go.
Oh, not until I leave this this body.
I'll send you pictures because I'm going back. But in the Serpernt, you have these giant granite boxes. They were carved out of a solid piece, hollowed out. The lid was cut. The lid was cut off. They were hollowed out. They were put back together. Now we've left them exactly as we found them because even now we can't even move the lids. Like, we can't get equipment in there to lift the lids and move things around. I mean, they're pretty big, heavy, and the ones that have been opened are because people dynamited them. Because that's good archaeology. It always has been. But in
it
the
was standard practice
hallway,
at the turn of the century.
It was. That's how we got in the Great Pyramid back in the 1800s. I mean, they just blew a hole in the side. Oh, look, it's the door. In the secondary hallway of the Serpernt, there is one of the granite boxes that was in the process of being moved. Literally stopped, dropped in the middle of the hallway. You have to turn sideways, suck it all in, and scooch between the granite box and the wall. About another 20 feet down the way is the lid. Again, just sitting there in the middle of the hallway, and they can't move it. Like, it's going to be there forever. Inside, and I'll refer back to this, inside the Great Pyramid where you have the granite box, there's a couple pieces of information. One is the granite box has been moved. It's not in its original location. There are two, we'll call them air shafts for lack of actually knowing what their purpose was. There are two air shafts that are exactly opposite of each other in the king's chamber. And the granite box used to sit between them. They've moved it now to the back of the room. But my directions aren't good. So I'm going to say one of the air shafts is blown out of the wall. And there is this huge crevice and a big mark that comes off of it where the stone is literally blown away. It looks like it's been struck by lightning. Exactly in the same place on the sarcophagus where it was lined up previously when it was between the two air shafts, and it's very iconic. Anyone who's seen a picture of the black the black box knows that the corner of the black box is blown out, and it's very large at the top, and then it gets smaller and smaller, and then it's a crack, and then it tapers off. My theory is, and I don't know what it was, but whatever was in the granite box was essential to the harnessing and distribution of energy. And it went out, whatever the energy was, through these shafts, and then moved on to, it was line of sighted to the next location from there. And it's interesting because my theory is something went cataclysmically wrong with the power plant, with the power station. There was an explosion, blew out the shaft, blew out the box. And when that happened, everything stopped. And if we go back to the Serpernt, the box that they were moving, utilizing frequency and whatever this energy was that they had access to, literally just sat down. The power got turned off. The fan stopped moving. The refrigerator stopped working, whatever. But the box just sat down because whatever they were using to harness the energy to move the box stopped working. When the batteries die in your remote control, you have to get up and go change the station. If the box is too big for you to move, it's just going to have to stay there. The second pyramid.
An interesting theory there. I mean, I've noticed the crack and wondered. I assumed that it was somebody trying to get into the box myself. I've never checked into it. It never dawned on me to think about it.
The box. To our knowledge, there was never any lid found with the box. Now, if you really want to go down the road of conspiracy, and I don't know how historical conspiracy, I don't know if I believe this or not, but it's just something interesting that I've noticed in some of my research. The internal dimensions of the black box in the pyramid are exactly the same as the external dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant as described in the Old Testament. So there is a group of people who are saying that the Ark of the Covenant was not a single solitary thing, that this was kind of like a mobile battery, and that's why people couldn't get too close to it and touch it, and they would get sick and die. It was basically radiation poisoning, or you're standing too close to the power junction. And that's something that was the same in the way that it utilized energy or produced it or whatever as the Ark of the Covenant was at one time housed inside the Great Pyramid.
Which is a good possibility. Now, recently they've uncovered evidence, Bible scholars, that there was 3 Arks of the Covenant.
Oh, I haven't heard that yet, so that puts a whole new twist on things, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because it would, King Solomon could have had one. It could have been one in the pyramids, and there could have been one down in Ethiopia, like they said.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Ethiopia still, they are very adamant that they have it.
Oh, yeah, they insist
it's still there. Yes, they do. There may not be a lot happening in that country, but that's there.
Mark fell off. He's having storms at his house, and he fell off.
Oh, bless his heart.
That's why you hadn't heard him speak. Is there any websites or anything that people can contact you with information? Or?
Oh, right now, the best way to get a hold of me is Welcome to the Modern Age is Facebook. And that's KATRINA Hutchins, HUTCHINS. That's not only my personal page, but also random things like this. And for anyone who is interested, again, just to make myself look a little more crazy, I am also the keeper of a activated crystal skull, and he has his own webpage on Facebook, and his name is Ruhadi. R-U is the first word, or first name, and then Hadi, H-A-D-I, is the second half, and he can also be friended, and I can be contacted through his page.
All right. Under Facebook, would it say World Explorer?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. I just found you. So.
Oh, yeah, I'm not hiding. But if you go into my photos and you look at my albums, I did a photo album every single day that I was in Egypt. And they're open to the public, and they are not copyrighted. If people use them, that's great. I'd love for them to give me credit. But you know what? I am not a believer in withholding information or withholding knowledge from anybody. So if somebody can look at that and get something out of it, then by all means, put them to good use.
Now, we spoke of Christopher Dunn earlier, didn't we?
Yes, a little bit.
How familiar are you with his work? We've actually had him on the show one time.
Mm-hmm. I unfortunately missed my opportunity to meet Chris Dunn yet. I've read Giza Power Plant, and I've watched several of the YouTube documentaries, and I think that, and of course he's famous now for Ancient Aliens, too. That's a whole different, he's using the same skills, but in a different context.
Right.
I think he's great. I think he is a very intelligent man who, in much the same way that when I went to Egypt, I was not looking for anything specific. I did not go there with a thought of, this is the theory that I want to prove. It was more like, after spending so much time and having unfettered access to all of these places, that I just went, oh, well, I'm just using my eyes and what people are showing me, and this is what makes sense. And Christopher, I think, did a lot of the same. He went and he saw with his own eyes. He used his own field of reference, and he used his own knowledge base to look at this and go, there's something else that makes a lot more sense.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
well, that question came from Alien Genius in our chat room. Maybe he knows something we don't.
Okay.
Being an alien.
Well, and again, that's where Chris Dunn is right now, is working, I think, primarily with the Ancient Aliens folks. And I think that the Ancient Aliens, and I've had some somewhat heated discussions with a couple of folks. I don't agree with everything that they have to say, and I don't think anybody is intended to believe everything that they say, but I love going around the world with them, and I love seeing the artifacts. I don't necessarily think that, let me rephrase, I think that humanity is awesome enough to have done this stuff on our own without needing an alien intervention, and to say that it had to be aliens because we can't figure it out is selling us short as a race.
I fully agree with that. Well, our ancestors were not dumb.
Right, but the flip side is Ancient Aliens as a program, I think, has gotten more people talking, looking, researching, and being armchair academics than anything else that has happened in a really long time. And if even one person watches Ancient Aliens and says, you know what, I want to know more about that, and either goes to another documentary, goes to the library, or, you know, God love them, buys a plane ticket, then that show has my vote 100% of the time.
Yeah, well, I fully agree myself. It's all about getting people to think.
Yes, yes, and we're not educated on how to think. We're educated on what to think. Or maybe I should say we're indoctrinated as to what to think. And it's a disservice that we do ourselves to blindly agree with everything someone else says just because they're the quote-unquote expert. I think the only thing I'm an expert in is like making biscuits from scratch. You know, like I got that down to a science. I can take that one to the bank. Everything else is a theory. Everything else that anybody else is spouting, and this is the proof that they have, the proof only holds up within their own theory. And that's true of mainstream archaeology. It's true of all of us armchair academics. It's even true of the travelers. I'm sure that there are people out there whose theories about the pyramids specifically are completely incompatible with my own. But we can both be right because we only have a theory. So make more theories.
That's the thing about science, and I do enjoy talking with experts, but it's the people who actually get out there and do the work. I mean, we have, for an example, astronomy. Most of the discoveries come from amateur astronomers, not from astronomers. And it's the same thing with the archaeology. If people don't realize that that's the ones who are actually making a difference.
If you go through, and I love this, I love that you brought that up. That's beautiful because it's true. You look at even something as literally monumentally amazing as Göbekli Tepe. Sheep farmer, stumped his toe on a rock.
It wasn't a guy from UCLA or Caltech.
No. You look at Darren Kuyu. We've got 12 stories of layers of tunnels dug through the earth in Turkey that can hold up to 200,000 people. Maybe it's 20,000. I shouldn't over-exaggerate. But anyway, 2 and a whole bunch of zero numbers of people. And a guy found it because he knocked a wall out in his house because he was renovating. Like, this stuff is everywhere. I will bet you almost anywhere in the United States, within a 2 to 3 hour drive, you can get to an archaeological site. You can go somewhere and see something firsthand. And if you're really feeling frisky, you can mark off a 10-foot grid in your backyard and start digging, and you are going to find something.
You never know what you're going to find either.
No, you know, it could be a child metal race car from the 1950s, but you still found something. You made a connection with those who came before you. And you can develop a theory. You know that back in the 50s, somebody on this property had a kid or liked race cars. So you can do that on a bigger level, you know, and I feel right now we have a very large financial embargo to keep people in this country from traveling. You meet people from Europe, there's nowhere they haven't been. You meet people from America, and there's nowhere they're willing to go. And it's a sad state of affairs because we need people to leave their house if possible, and to leave the country if possible, and experience those other cultures and those other realities. And you just don't know what you're going to find. It could be a new best friend, it could be a new favorite food, or it could be a whole new theory about how the earth was unified through Tesla-style non-Hertz electricity. You just don't know what's going to happen when you walk out your front door.
This is very true. Now, I've been fortunate. I've gotten to visit a few other countries, and I've gotten to see some of the ancient sites. Nothing as far as Egypt. I never got to go to Egypt, but all over the Med. And some of them, just to stand there in front of them is a whole lot different than looking at a picture.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's how I started out. When I was talking to you guys earlier, is I really thought, like, I was the most prepared middle-aged white American woman. I was ready. Let's go to Egypt, and I'm going to rock this place. And no, I came back a shattered human being, not because bad things happened to me, but because it changed. And I mean, I'm a hippie. I am a homeschool mom. We eat organic. We're just like, we're all just love and peace and happiness, and we're so open, and we love everybody, and yada, yada, yada. But I am not the person. I learned in Egypt that I was not the person that I thought I was. It changes your perspective inside and out, and it's for the good. I mean, you may do some tearing down, but it was well worth it, and definitely that whole trip of a lifetime that I need to make again.
Well, while you were there, did you get to go see visit the Temple of the Sphinx?
I did, and I was so blessed because the member of the family that took me my first time to the plateau, young, energetic, just really full of information, full of passion. And when we went to the Valley Temple, we started to go in, and he's like, no, you have to take off your shoes. And I'm looking around. There's nobody else there that has their shoes off. And I'm also thinking, it's really hot, and the sun is really bright, and this is going to not be good for my feet. But okay, whatever. So he talked me into it. I took my shoes off. The entire floor of the Valley Temple is alabastrite, or alabaster, or it's a type of quartz crystal, calcite, maybe white calcite. And it is so electrically charged that walking barefoot through the Valley Temple, by the time we got through to the other side to go up to where the Sphinx was, I literally could not feel my legs. I felt like I had gotten a hold of electric wire that wasn't properly insulated. And that was just from walking on rock. And it's like, where is all this energy? How is it being dissipated? Where is it going? How did it get here? And that's actually one of the first things that got me thinking along the lines of electric use, because you could feel the energy. And I don't mean that in a third eye hippie peace, love, and happiness way. I mean, like, you could literally physically feel the energy. And it wasn't hot. It was like cool to the touch. It's like there's the noon sun. How is this not hot? And there's aspects of the Valley Temple and the way that it's built that are very reflective of the controlling and harnessing of energy. And you see this in the Mesoamerican pyramids as well, that when you have a corner, instead of all the stones butting up against each other, they're actually carved in a curve so that the corners are insulated. There's no straight line. And I've spoken with someone whose field was to install shielding for rooms that were being used for either radiation or X-ray. And he's like, that's exactly what we do. We overlap by a couple inches so that the corners don't create a place for the energy to leave. And when you start looking at all these structures with all their overlapping corners, and it would have been so much easier just to butt two rocks up against each other, you really start thinking there has to be a purpose, and that purpose is so that it's a seal. It's a way to keep the energy in and to keep it moving.
So now you stayed 6 weeks with a family who's lived there all their lives and met a bunch of the people who live there. Do you think that this energy is used by the people? Are they in a great mood all the time, or?
Well, I'm not really sure, because I don't know that we know how to harness the energy that's there. The machine, such as it was, is broken. And that's visible in a lot of different ways, not just the casing stones being gone and things like that, but it's broke. I mean, it's just broke. Don't know how to fix it. So I think the energy that is there is very palpable, and I think it affects people. But I don't know how that impacts them across the course of their entire life. I know that the people there were amazingly hospitable and friendly and happy to see someone from America, and I was not ever made to feel unsafe, even by myself. And I was obviously an outsider. I dressed modestly, but I didn't cover my hair or anything while I was there. And you'll have people, just like if you go to Chicago, people who are going to, hey, do you have a buck? Hey, do you have a sandwich or whatever? You're going to experience that the whole world over. But that was the worst thing that happened to me while I was there. It was just very peaceful and very safe. Now, I do have to say, I was supposed to be there for 6 weeks, and I ended up leaving at 4.5 weeks, I think, because they had their second revolution, and it was basically either leave the country on Saturday, or we don't know when you can leave, because last time they shut down the airports and communications and all the other stuff. And it wasn't a matter of safety. I would have been perfectly safe. The family guaranteed everything was fine. Like, I didn't have to leave the house. It was going to be okay. But you may be stuck here for another couple of months and not be able to call home. So I decided to go home early. And in that last week, leading up to the revolution, I didn't really realize what was going on, but you could feel it. Like the negative energy or the hostile energy was very amplified, and like I was crying every day. I was miserably, sadly crying every day, and I couldn't figure out why. And then toward the end of the week, they're like, "Oh, by the way, everybody sent out invitations. They're having a revolution on Saturday." And then I was like, "Oh, that's what it is. It's the amplification of all of this frustration and anger, not toward me or anybody else, other than the government."
See, that was kind of what I was wondering, if maybe the energy was still amplifying stuff, even though it wasn't working right, And
yes,
apparently
it is.
You were feeling it,
I very strongly believe that I was. And there's a level of personal energy that is very high in Egypt. And I don't really know how to explain that, but people have a vivaciousness to them. Even people who are miserably destitute and poor are not, I don't know if depressed is the right word, but they still have a sense of energy about them. Like, they're not hopeless. They don't appear to be hopeless.
That's great to hear. That was kind of what I was getting at. If you could actually, feel it and see it, and apparently you can. You just weren't realizing it. Now I heard through the grapevine that you are possibly starting a radio show.
Well, we are, and it's already started, sort of. And that would be myself and Bruce Cunningham through Ancient Mysteries International. And I believe we have 4 shows recorded, and we will be recording again starting next week when he returns from the Philippines. But so far, I think we've interviewed, we've interviewed Ed Malkowski. So he's Ancient Egypt and Technology and Spiritualism also. We've interviewed Steve Sora who is, and I would consider an expert on the Knights Templar and Oak Island and some of the hidden histories of America in that direction. We've interviewed Patrick Giles, who has a different theory on the Great Pyramids as reservoirs and catchers of rain when there was a different climate in that location. And I'm going to have to make an apology to somebody because I don't remember who the fourth interview was recorded with off the top of my head.
Where can these interviews be found?
Well, the first
I'm
iteration. Oh, great. Well, awesome. We're actually going to be on a public access radio station out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's WELT, and they can be found online, and they are both streaming live and archiving the shows. So that's for them. And I think if you just maybe do a web search for WELT Fort Wayne Radio, it should pop right up. And then we will also be and that'll be once a week. And then once a month, we will be on Joe Ayala's radio show through Real Revolution Radio, which is out of Cleveland. And that is strictly internet-based radio station. But we'll be on that lineup, hopefully starting in May, rather.
Well, that sounds good. Like I said, I'm interested in it. We only have a couple of minutes before the end of the show. Do you have anything you'd like to say before the end of the show that we hadn't covered?
The only thing, and we actually did already cover it, but it's kind of a pet thing with me, and that is if you can, do. Don't wait for somebody else to bring you the information. If there is any possibility that you can get up and go out and do something, to have an experiential opportunity to discover something more about the world or yourself, take it.
I fully agree with that. If we get more people off their couch, we would find out a whole lot more about this world, wouldn't we?
Yes, and I see people, and I talk to people, and they're like, oh, I would never have the money, and I could never do. But you know what? People have the money for NASCAR. People have the money for the Super Bowl. People have the money to go to professional sports. People have the money to go to Disneyland. You could take that same money and probably even less and have a life-changing experience that lasts for weeks and possibly changes everything about you for the rest of your life. Disneyland's always going to be there. Don't waste your time or money there. And I know that there's some very, very passionate people about Disney, so don't send me threats. But seriously, take that same amount of money and go somewhere that you're going to feel safe. Like I can tell you all day long that Egypt is safe, but if you don't feel it, then that's up to you. But, go somewhere, do something, see something. Don't worry about spending money. Use photographs for souvenirs and stay with a local family and just learn about others and learn about yourself.
People mortgage their houses to go to Disneyland.
I know. I can't. My mind doesn't work that way.
No, mine doesn't either. I mean, you could spend $100 and go to the beach.
Oh.
Or to your local state park and actually learn something.
Yes, and I'm not bashing or belittling anyone who those are the things that are important to them, because I understand that as little as they understand me jumping a plane by myself and going to Cairo. I get it.
Well, that's the end of the show. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. I sure appreciate you coming on. I hope Mark's okay and didn't get struck by lightning or something tonight.
Oh.
So, y'all folks, remember, we are totally listener supported, so if you got a buck or two, we'd sure appreciate it. Y'all have a good evening.